everyone. Welcome back to the Morning Grind podcast presented by rotogrinders.com. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's Friday, April 29th. We have a nice 14-game slate here. Hoop had an issue with his daughter, so I got a really good replacement and a guy that you guys should all know by now here at Rotogrinders, and it's Pepsi 7. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, my man. Thank God it's Friday.
Yes, it is Friday. I actually leave first thing in the morning on Friday and head to Talladega for the race. So I got a lot of travel on Friday today.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely something to look forward to, though.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it. That's for sure. And just want to thank everybody, all the kind words everybody's been sending me on Twitter and everybody listening and downloading on YouTube's and Stitcher. We appreciate it here at Rotogrinders. Love the Morning Grind podcast, so I love the feedback that we're getting here. And Pepsi, we got a nice 14-game slate here, so I feel like we should just jump right in if you don't have any thoughts.
Sounds good, buddy. Let's do it.
All right, first game we got here is Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. I just want to note we're going to skip over that early morning game. We're recording this podcast about 9 Eastern on Thursday night, and there's not a big slate up for that morning game. So I feel like you could just fade it. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh here. Dan Straley taking on Juan Nicasio. Nicasio was supposed to start in Coors on Thursday. Got pushed back a start. What's your thoughts on Nicasio and Straley here?
Well, I'm a big fan of Nicasio. I just feel like he's always had that powerful arm, strikeout upside. His biggest thing has been his control. And, of course, pitching in Coors Field hasn't helped his career either. But this is a guy that's got some big potential here. And this matchup suits very well for him. First of all, pitcher-friendly park in Pittsburgh there, PNC Park. And the Cincinnati Reds, not an awful team, but they walk the least amount versus right-handed pitching of any National League team, which obviously is a problem for Nicasio. So we have an aggressive team, which helps him. And they're striking out the third most versus right-handed pitching. So this sits up very well for Nicasio. I'm not suggesting a cash game option, but as a number 2 or in your GPPs, I actually like him today. On the flip side, Straley, he is what he is. He's a guy that, I'm kind of neutral on. I don't necessarily want to roster him. I don't necessarily want to pick on him. Again, in that ballpark, I don't think I have to have any pirate bats that are kind of expensive after being in Coors. So for me, I'm actually somewhat intrigued by Nicasio at GPP.
Yeah, I agree just about everything you've said, except for the fact that you don't think he's a cash game play. I do. 6,800. Like you said, it's a great matchup against the Reds. They have a terrible WOBA against righties this season. They're striking out at a high clip at 22% here. And if you look, their WRC plus is the third lowest in the league against righties this season. Yeah. His price tag at 6,800. If you feel like you need bats, I feel like he's an option. And then on a 2-pitcher site like DraftKings, Fantasy Draft, Fantasy Aces, I would be okay with using him as an SB2 here. I'm not really afraid of anything that the Reds have to offer.
Yeah, the SB2 thing I mentioned, but cash games on FanDuel or other one-pitcher sites, I've already played the rosters, I'll be honest with you. I love it. But at the end of the day, I always feel like if you don't have to have any bats, and this is not a night where there's a lot of places where you see, okay, here's runs. It's Coors Field, it's Fenway Park, yeah. It's the Sky Dome, wherever you want to be, Rogers Center now, of course. I don't feel like there's not bats that there has to have, so I keep going back to Kluber, who we'll get into later, I guess is the best option. But I have toyed with Nicasio, but on a one-pitcher site like FanDuel, do you think you can play Nicasio in cash?
I do, but I take a lot of risk in cash. And I say cash, I don't play a lot of cash games. I make more of like a optimal lineup, and I'll throw it in a bunch of 3-mans and 5-mans, and I call it an optimal lineup for me because I don't necessarily play 50-50s or head-to-heads anymore. I just like the 3-mans, the 5-mans, single-entry tournaments, and this would be a guy that I would definitely consider. We're going to talk about Kluber against Philadelphia at 11K here in a few minutes, but I am not against Nicasio, especially because, like I said, he's 6,800, and this is a great ballpark to pitch in. Reds don't scare you. They're going to be a team we're not going to pick on a lot at home, but this is a matchup I like him. Let's talk about some of these bats. We'll visit here with the Cincinnati team coming into Pittsburgh. Is there anybody that stands out here that you like on the Reds?
Not in particular. Obviously the two obvious choices, Bruce and Votto are here, but neither one was swinging it real well. And again, I kind of like Nicasio here. We mentioned the ballpark being is what it is. I don't see a lot of offense. I see no reason really to go here for really either offense. Straley, you could go with a guy like Polanco or Jason maybe in your cash games because you're going to get the splits in your favor. But I don't see a lot of runs being scored here. I see Pittsburgh maybe winning this game 4-2, something like that. So I'm not targeting any of the bats right now in any format. I may land on somebody at some point, but right now, looking at this, I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the offense.
I'm gonna kind of judge it throughout the day. Like I said, I gotta travel to Alabama here from Florida. I'll be listening to a lot of podcasts, be listening to a lot of stuff today. If people are still talking about Pittsburgh like they were, when they're in Coors Field, then I feel like they're a good fade. But if people are really off of them, I feel like we can get these guys. Their prices have come down since they're out of Coors. They had a great series. It was Coors, don't get me wrong, but I don't hate Pittsburgh here. It's going to be more of trying to guess their ownership percentages throughout the day.
Yeah, in a tournament, I never mind McCutcheon and Marte. They both have jack-in-the-bag upside. We know they can steal bases as well, which really helps. But guys like Jaso and Freeze, I don't need guys like this in my cash game or GPP lineups. Their upside's limited, and a guy like Freeze especially, tough place to hit balls in the park down the left field line there as a right-handed batter. So not a big fan of this game offensively at all.
Chicago White Sox visiting the Baltimore Orioles. Carlos Rendon against Mike Wright. What's your thoughts on these guys?
Well, Rendon has some big upside, obviously. The Orioles are an aggressive team. They strike out a lot. The problem is they also hit home runs, and they play in a great park there in Camden Yards, so it's scary. I see some potential here in tournaments. I don't even know if I like him as a second pitcher on a two-pitcher site, to be honest, but the upside's there for your GPPs, but I'd be more interested probably in the Baltimore bats in the GPP. And, of course, Mike Wright, I think he is a gas can, and he is gas can on night material. So I think the White Sox offense is also in play in this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on Wright. If I'm willing to take a shot on Dinks against Baltimore, I'm willing to take a shot on Rendon against Baltimore. So I'll have some tournament lineups with him. I like the upside. Dude, I feel like Baltimore's a team. I know they got to Dinks on Thursday night, but I feel like Baltimore's a team that's a lot better against right-handed pitching than they are against left-handed pitching. So I like the upside. I feel like the $8,500 price tag is a little high on him, but I feel like the upside's still there. Let's talk about the visiting team, the White Sox. You said Wright's a guy that could be your gas can. He's definitely not a guy that you want to target, but I feel like we could take some bats here.
Yeah, White Sox coming in hot after sweeping the Toronto Blue Jays too. So, the lefties are the biggest thing here versus Wright. They just absolutely pound him. But the bigger bats, of course, are Abreu and Frazier, and they're right-handed. However, they're both great hitters. They both hit right-handed pitching well, and Wright will get up to righties. So for power, those are the two guys I'm looking at. And guys like Adam Eaton and Jimmy Rollins even hitting the 2 spot, and Melky Cabrera probably hitting around 5. All three of those guys, moderately priced, good left-handed bats. They've all got multi-hit / multi-run upside, and they can all steal a bag as well. More so Eaton and Rollins than Melky Cabrera, of course. But depending on their price, site dependent, all those guys are in play for all formats for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love the lefties here. I like Eaton a lot. I think he's a guy you can play in cash games. Abreu has massive upside. Frazier has some upside. I like Eaton a lot. We're looking at Mike Wright. He gives up a lot of fly balls to lefties, hard contact rate, high home run to fly ball ratio. I feel like this is a good spot to target Melky Cabrera and Eaton. So I definitely agree with you there. I'm not on a lot of these Baltimore bats, but I'd love to get your take on them.
Yeah, like I said, you can go both ways here, and maybe I will. I might have some Carlos Rodon in my GPPs. I might have some Baltimore bats there. You mentioned Baltimore better versus righties, which is true, which is strange considering they've got Adam Jones and Machado and Trumbo, all these big right-handed bats. You think they would smash southpaws, but that has not been the case so far this season. So the strikeouts are there, but again, the upside. As I mentioned, those 3 batters can all double down. And Adam Jones on FanDuel right now, $2,500, starting to heat up a little bit. That's a great GPP bat there at that price.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Adam Jones is a GPP play. Trumbo might be another guy that you might want to target in tournaments. But if I had to pick one guy in tournaments here, it's probably Chris Davis, just because, the lefty-lefty matchup will turn people off. And I feel like he might get 1 or 2 at-bats against the bullpen, and this is definitely a spot that he's going to be low-owned. Not saying that I necessarily do it at 3,900, but if I had to target one tournament play, I like taking Davis against lefties, draw some walks, and gets the bullpen late in the game. Let's move on. Cleveland at Philadelphia. Corey Kluber, Adam Morgan. Morgan filling in. Got the call up here to take over for Charlie Morton, who tore his hamstring out for the season. Getting an opportunity. Morgan was pitching in AAA. Corey Kluber against Philadelphia. I know you're dying to talk about this.
Yeah, Kluber finally looked like the Kluber of old with 8 strong innings versus Detroit and punching out double digits there with 10 Ks. So very happy to see that after 3 pretty rough starts. So I think Kluber's back. Um, the ballpark's not great here, but Philadelphia is a weak offense, bottom third in most offensive categories. They're striking it a lot more than they did last year. So this sets up well for Kluber. I think over on FanDuel, this is probably your top option today if you're looking for strikeouts, a pitcher to go deep and get a win. The Cleveland Bats should be able to get that of Morgan. Morgan's a guy that's really struggled in his brief major league career versus right-handed batters.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Morgan, a guy, we're going to want to pay attention to him. The Phillies have a lot of young arms, and Morgan's another guy that, we've seen a lot of young guys here for Philly, and he didn't make the cut coming out of spring training, so probably not as good. But if we're looking at the Cleveland order here, and I agree with everything you said about Kluber. If you have the 11K, if you want to go safe, he's definitely the number one option as far as cash games go. I agree with you. Like I said, I like taking some risk. I might play Nicasio. We'll see. So looking at some of these bats, we'll start with Cleveland. They're visiting Philadelphia here. First 2 guys that stand out to me the most are Lindor and Mike Napoli. What's your thoughts here against Morgan?
Yeah, Napoli for me more of a GPP option. Wondering, too, who DHs, who plays National League Park. We don't even know if Napoli for sure will be in the lineup. Maybe Santana's playing first base and sure. Napoli's out of it. So keep an eye on that. But you're right. He's rejuvenated. He's smashing lefties. He's certainly a great GPP option if he is in the lineup. Lindor, this kid has been unbelievable. He's exceeded expectations, I think, even for Cleveland. Certainly past my expectations as a light-hitting, shortstop. And he's destroyed southpaws in his career. So this is a guy that I'd love to get in there. A little pricey on FanDuel, $3,500, but he'd be a great cash game play or even a great tournament play if you can find the room for him. And Carlos Santana, a guy that used to kill lefties, hasn't done so recently, but he's swinging a hot bat, reasonably priced at $3,300. He's another guy that I really like in this matchup in that small ballpark.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but what's your thoughts on Santana batting leadoff? He's been batting leadoff for Indiana.
I absolutely love it. I love it because here's something for you. Those of you know, I live just north of Toronto. I'm a Blue Jays fan. And we got Michael Saunders leading off twice against Jose Quintana and Chris Sale, lefty versus lefty. Awful idea. The idea is, of course, Saunders has speed. My theory is it's not about that. When you got sluggers behind you, give me the on-base guy. Carlos Santana is a great on-base guy. You're not stealing bases very often, especially if you're a Blue Jay at the top of that order and you got that kind of power behind you. It's so overrated, the leadoff spot. Give me my best on-base guy, one of my best hitters. He's going to bat more than everybody else. I don't understand it. So I'm perfectly fine with this theory. I think more teams should be adapting to that. Look at the way we've adapted to WOBA and the defense, the way they set up and do their shifts, and it makes sense. We need an on-base guy leading off. You want a guy on base. How often are you stealing bases from that spot? Especially Cleveland's, they don't have a guy that can really, steal 40, 50 bases. So for me, I'm perfectly fine with it. Get a guy on base and let's start this rolling.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think more teams should do it. Give me your best hitters in the top of the order. Let me score my runs. It doesn't need to be, I need a fast guy up there. It's not 1980. We're playing in the 2000s now. So, it's a big difference. Is there any of these Philly bats that you want against Kluber here?
I don't think so. I mean, unless you're trying to be ultra contrarian, Herrera's going to be cheap and Hernandez will be cheap. And Howard, of course, has some pop there, I guess. But, Kluber scares me a little bit because he's not Clayton Kershaw. Like, look at those first 3 starts. You never really know. And, again, it's a tiny ballpark. So I'm a little bit nervous about going all in at that price on him. But I'm certainly not going away to target Philly bats against him. For me, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So,
yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said there. Herrera, maybe Howard in a tournament, but for the most part, I feel like we have 14 games. There's no need for it. But we can target some batters in this game. We have the New York Yankees taking on my Boston Red Sox at Fenway. Tanaka against Henry Owens, the lefty. I keep saying this, and it just seems like it keeps happening. I feel like lefties against the Yankees is going to be the new trend. We've seen it probably like 5 or 6 times over the last 10 days where the Yankees have faced a left-handed pitcher. What's your thoughts on Owens and Tanaka in this game?
I completely agree with you with lefties versus the Yankees. This game is completely neutral for me because I don't believe the Yankees are going to pound Owens because it's a lefty. And I realize that Tejera has good history versus lefties. Hasn't done it recently. A-Rod's certainly declining. and both Gardner and Ellsbury can hit them fine. But I had been off the Yankees every single time they faced a lefty, and it's worked out well for me. On the flip side, Tanaka, again, not a guy you want to pick on. I'm not looking to target any of the bats in this game for those reasons. However, in tournaments, the Yankees and Boston are notorious for having 10-9 games, especially in Fenway Park. I'm going to be all over both teams in tournaments just because, they can explode. But in a cash game situation, I don't know if there's anybody I really have to have. Again, do we want to pick on Tanaka? Not with 14 games on the table. And the Boston Red Sox are expensive. On the flip side, again, like we talked about, the Yankees are not hitting left-handed pitching right now. Perhaps an A-Rod, if he's cheap on the site you're playing on, I can understand it. But I'm not looking to target any of these Yankee bats. A guy that I would be interested in normally, Aaron Hicks. But they're not putting him on the 2 spot or having him lead off and giving him more than 2 at-bats, unfortunately. So that's a tough guy to have. But as a punt play, I guess I would like him best.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it there. It's interesting for sure. Looking at it, man, Tanaka 9,500. I don't think I'm going to target him. I don't want Henry Owens. He's just very inconsistent. And then I think you nailed it. We have a 14-game slate. Do we really pick on Tanaka or Owens in cash? Now in tournaments, dude, I'm all about me some David Ortiz, some Travis Shaw, some Mookie Betts. All these guys are in play for me in tournaments. And then, the other way around, it's really tough to target bats in this lineup. A-Rod may be the one guy that I would play in a tournament from the Yankees. Maybe Brian McCann, if he gets the start, he hits left-handed pitching a lot better than a lot of people think. And he doesn't lose anything when the bullpen comes in and there's a righty that he faces late in the game. So Brian McCann, Alex Rodriguez, and the 3 or 4 bats that I mentioned for Boston. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, also consider in GPPs that both these bullpens are actually pretty good. So if you're not in love with picking on Owens and Tanaka, you may want to stay away if you're trying to limit, the teams you're stacking, the teams you're going to get exposure to, because these teams both have good bullpens. So depending on who's got the lead, it's a gamble. But again, somehow, some way, regardless of pitching, hey, Stevie, these games end up being exciting, high-scoring affairs.
Yeah, man, it's always. So Toronto at Tampa Bay. Aaron Sanchez, Drew Smyly. Interesting game here. I'm not a big Aaron Sanchez fan. I'm sure you have some thoughts on it. He's 7,100 facing Tampa Bay. If there was a spot that I was going to take him, it's going to be at Tampa against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this kid. I mean, I've watched all of his starts all season. I watched him pitch to the bullpen last year. If you take out a few starts that he had last year before we sent him to the minors and brought him back up in the pen, this kid has been unbelievable. He was tremendous the first 3 starts, including shutting out Tampa in the first start. I think he gave up a run, 7 innings and 8 Ks. But until his last start versus Oakland, where he was seeing eye singled to death, everything that was in play was a ground ball, found a hole, found a hole, found a hole. He's a ground ball specialist, so he limits the damage with the double play. The kid's legit. He's got a fantastic arm. He throws in the mid-90s. Everything, he's hard to square up. Everything moves. I love the kid. He is absolute legit. I think a lot of guys are going to look at that start and go, there you go, regression's in play. Lefties smash him, blah, blah, blah. It's not the case. Lefties don't touch him. Righties don't touch him. He's playable. I don't like the matchup versus Smyly just because the Jays bats are so cold. They're striking out a ton, and Smiley's been terrific as well. 28 Ks in his last 22 innings. That's incredible. So I think both these guys are great GPP options. On a site like FanDuel, where you're looking for the win, that's going to be hard to come by because I really think this game's a bit of a toss-up. But because of me liking these pitchers so much, I'm not attacking the batters at all in this game in cash.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard for me not to say Donaldson's even a play in cash. He is just so good against left-handed pitch.
Yeah, he is. It's tough to pay that price versus a pitcher that's pretty good. But you're right. He's had success against him too, albeit a very small sample size. But, if you went to an Ocasio like Steve talked about in your cash and you were loading up, I'm not going to talk you off Donaldson in this spot, but I just don't have to pick on anybody here. But in GPPs, I love some of these Jays righties. Smyly is prone to the home run ball. The one thing he does is hang the odd curveball there, get beat with the fastball, and they leave the park. It seems like 50% of the hits he gives up leave the park. So there's some upside for the Jays bats, and it's a little scary with Smyly there. That's why I say tournament only.
Yeah, man, Smyly has pitched well this season. Like, Ever since he came to Tampa, he has pitched well. They got his issues fixed. He was really struggling with righties. Like his numbers were through the roof against righties. If you look at a lot of his early numbers with Detroit, like it was really bad. And I like him a lot. I just don't like him in this matchup. Toronto just has so much upside against left-handed pitching. You know, Donaldson, Batista, Tulowitzki, and Encarnacion. All these guys are just able to hit left-handed pitching very well. Sanchez is an option for me. 7,100. I feel like he's a good tournament play. Like you said, the win might be something that we're worried about, but if I feel like the Blue Jays bats are going to come through for me, I feel like Sanchez is a play, and I'm not against like taking Sanchez and maybe some of the bats from Toronto, hoping that they get the runs and then he's able to shut down Tampa. I feel like that's a way that I might go in a tournament here.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to go. I mean, if the Toronto bats are rolling, Sanchez is winning. Plus, going to Sanchez allows you to get 3 of those big right-handed bats. So I think that's brilliant in a tournament.
Any other bats that you want to talk about in this game before we move on?
Corey Dickerson, the one guy in Tampa Bay that would scare me from Aaron Sanchez. I just absolutely love him against right-handed pitching. Sanchez, again, tough. He's got the four-seamer with the sink. He's got the sinker going on. He's a tough guy to get on top of and put the ball in the air on. But if anybody's going to do it, it's Dickerson, and he has multi-home upside anytime he faces a righty, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if he's going to stay this low, we're going to talk about him on the podcast every day. Just letting everybody know that's listening to the podcast, if he's going to be 3K against the righty, we're going to talk about him every day. Giants taking on the New York Mets at Citi Field. Steven Matz, Jake Peavy. I really, really like the Mets bats in this game, and for that reason, I think Matz is a tournament option. What's your thoughts on Matz here against the Giants?
Yeah, I like Matz. Great young pitcher. The Mets just seem to be popping them out like candies right now. These pitchers coming out of nowhere, and well, not coming out of nowhere, but just developing these young guns that they have. So it's a pretty good rotation when Matz is your number 5 or 6 guy when Wheeler comes back. That's crazy. So I really like Matz. The San Francisco Giants, though, to a smaller degree, are the National League version of the Kansas City Royals to me. They're patient. They make you work. They don't strike out a ton. They put the ball in play. They're very tough to face. So I'm not a fan of the matchup. I don't see the upside here for strikeouts. But with the same theory in a tournament that you just did with Sanchez and the Jays, I like it for the Mets. Go with Matz, some lefty bats for the Mets. And that makes sense to me because Peavy, another guy that keeps declining year after year, and lefties and righties are just smashing him this season. And those Mets are hot. So the Mets bats from both sides of the plate are in play for me, and Matz in a GPP perhaps.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll start it off here with the Giants bats instead of the visiting team. Is there any of these bats that really stand out to you for the Giants here?
You know, I mean, Buster Posey, he's a lefty killer. It doesn't really matter who he's facing. He's going to be highly underowned, I think, because Matz is a decent pitcher, because they're on the road in New York, which is a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I don't see Posey getting a whole lot of attention. So I think he's going to go underowned. And Hunter Pence, another guy, too, that's got some pop there, too. But to be honest, I think Matz keeps him in check. I just don't see him having a dominating performance, going 7 with 10 Ks, say. He's capable of it, but the Giants make it difficult.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I don't really like Pence. I do like Posey. Brandon Crawford, maybe as a one-off tournament option, low-owned. He hits left-handed pitching very well. He has for the last couple of years, so that might be a guy that I like in tournaments. But I like a lot of these Mets bats, but I'll let you talk about who you like here first.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like Neil Walker. The guy is absolutely on fire. It seems like he's homering every night. He's always matched right-handed pitching. And Peavy been a guy that's been mostly a reverse splits guy for the most part until recently. Again, both sides are hitting him. So absolutely love Walker. But Michael Conforto is the guy that I love. This kid is really coming to his own, hitting near the top of the order, into the middle of the order, second or third, depending on the night. And he's crushing righties. So that's a bat that I would love in any format. And, of course, Granderson. Guy works himself on base, got some pop still. He's in play. And Lucas Duda being another left-handed bat that's hard not to like as well. So even going down to Asdrubal Cabrera, he's reasonably priced at shortstop. And if you're not going to pay up for a guy like Lindor, but yet you don't want to punt it completely, Cabrera's a nice option there. He's coming up with runners on base constantly, RBI opportunities every single night. And again, against Peavy, he's certainly in play.
Yeah, I like everything you said there. Walker, Conforto, Duda, Granderson, probably the way that I would go with a 4-man stack here. Love the upside for the Mets bats against Peavy. Like you said, Peavy continues to decline year after year, and this is a really good spot for the Mets. don't have to spend too much time. You pretty much nailed it. I don't even have to do anything. I like this. Hector Santiago, Colby Lewis. The Angels are visiting at Texas, Arlington Ballpark here. Interesting game. Santiago, we seen this last year. He was so good until the All-Star break, and then he declined. He has been really legit to start the season. What's your thoughts on Santiago here?
Yeah, I don't know what to do with him. Normally, I would say throw it out the window. It's Arlington. Globe Life Park is the hitter's ballpark. The Rangers got an explosive offense, yada, yada, yada. But the Rangers aren't hitting, especially versus lefties. Santiago's been great. So I look at this and I kind of go, okay, it's kind of neutral now. I'm still not interested in rostering Santiago, I don't think. I don't love the upside here. Rangers not a team that strike out a ton. And we know they're deep and they can explode. But I'm not really dying to load up on the Ranger bats here. Depending on how the order comes out, you know, if you're going to get the righties stacked up again, like they did against CC Sabathia the other night there, I kind of like that in a stack. Certainly didn't work out for us, but I would target something like that. Beltre's just not clicking right now. The Shields are struggling. So I think they're stackable. Just if you're a guy that plays, you know, multi-entry GPP guy and you're going to stack 4 or 5 teams a night, they're stackable. So that's kind of where I stand there. I'm only going to play the bats on Santiago because I just don't love it here. And on the flip side with Colby Lewis, you know, same idea as Peavy, although he was never elite. Colby Lewis, he's the guy declining year after year as well. Lefties have been pounding him for years now. So the lefties are in play for Los Angeles. And the two biggest threats from the right-handed side, of course, Albert Pujols and Mike Trout, have destroyed him over the years. They both have great BVPs. If you're a BVP guy, even if you're not, you have to love them. So really, based on that, all the Angels are in play in all formats here. And the Texas bullpen, Stevie, how bad is that bullpen? I mean, you got the ballpark, you got Colby Lewis, and you got an awful bullpen. Give me the Angels here.
Well, that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Santiago. Like, I love targeting pitchers that are going to be pitching with a lead, and I have a hard time finding, you know, Lewis, striking out or dealing a lot of, you know, stuff here against the Angels. And Angels coming into this game starting to warm up. Trout starting to hit the ball very well over the last few games here. You know, he comes in with, you know, double-digit fantasy points and home runs in 3 of his last 5 games. So I'm having a tough time getting off Santiago for tournaments. If you're giving me the 12 points for the win, I feel like he's going to be a really good option in this game. I don't like Colby Lewis. I agree with you. Texas bullpen is awful. I agree. Who's worse, the Atlanta bullpen or the Texas bullpen? They are pretty bad, both of those guys.
I agree. I'm going to say Atlanta's the worst throughout the year because Texas has got some arms that are actually half decent, just not pitching well. Whereas Atlanta is just throwing whoever in the pen and basically rebuilding. So I'm going to assume Texas gets better, but until that happens, we got to pick on them, especially when we get a bad start of the round. But your Santiago theory makes sense. And I just looked up Texas Rangers numbers versus lefties. They're actually striking more than I thought, 24.4%, 5th most in the American League versus the lefties. So there's some potential for K's there. But, you know, if you're going to grab 3 Angels, say you grab Calhoun, Pujols, Trout, and Santiago, it makes sense because you figure you're getting a win there. What I worry about is one of those 8-4 wins where Santiago is just okay. And at his salary, you know, I'm interested, but I'm not dying to have my guess. Like there is some merit to rostering him, but $8,600, I don't know that he's going to go 7 strong with 7 Ks. That's what worries me a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be concerned with. The one thing he does have in going for him right now, he's averaging a little bit over a strikeout per inning this season. Like I said, it's the same thing we seen last year with him. He was so good up until the All-Star break, and he declined. Hopefully he can keep it going for a full season here. I will disagree with you on one thing. I don't think I want Calhoun in my stack. I'm going to stick to the full BVP here, and I'm going to stack up some Gio Votella against him, 2,300, second base eligible. He has some good BVP against our boy Lewis as well, so that's where I'm going. I'm going with that 3-man stack, Santiago. I like it a lot for tournaments here.
Yeah, Calhoun has been cool, but he's another guy that's just mashed Lewis, and Lewis gives it up to lefties. And depends where Giovatelli is in the order. But what do we got here for Calhoun? 11 for 28 with a couple of doubles, a triple, a homer. So basically everybody in play, even Ortega, if he's in that number 2 spot, he makes a fantastic punt. Not a lot of power there, but he's a guy that could have multi-hits and multi-runs scored in this game with Pujols and Trout behind him. And from FanDuel, for example, he's $2,300. So basically, to me, the entire lineup for the Angels is in play today. You can find some value there. You can pay up for Trout. He's probably the top play, in my opinion, tonight. And again, we talked about the ballpark and the bullpen. You know, runs are going to be happening here.
All right, if we had to pick on Santiago with one guy, there's one guy that I really like here for the Rangers. It's Elvis Andrus.
Yeah, upside's limited a little bit. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Andrews. He's capable again, like a couple hits, couple runs, I guess, in this one. You'd like to think that Beltre, DeShields, all these righties, Ian Desmond, who's been hot, are the guys you want to go after. But I really don't love any of them. And Santiago's been so good, like you said. I guess I give the edge to Desmond just because he's been hitting the ball really well. They had him hit cleanup the other night. Ryan Rua is a different option too. He's another nice punt play. And he may not see 4 at bats, but he's always hit lefties well. He could find himself hitting 5 or 6 in the outfield if you want to be a little contrarian with a punt. I think he's in play as well. But again, it's tough, Stevie? When you get a guy like at 2 at bats, it's tough.
I agree. Detroit at Minnesota. Phil Hughes against Michael Fulmer. Fulmer getting the call up here. Green going to the DL with a blister. I know Fulmer is a top prospect for Detroit. What's your thoughts on Fulmer and Hughes here?
Yeah, Fulmer is the Tigers' top prospect, number 50 in Major League Baseball. He was in the Yoenis Cespedes deal coming over. So kid's talented. Throws in the mid-90s for the fastball. Got a nasty slider. The Twins do strike out quite a bit, so he's interesting. Pretty cheap price on FanDuel here at $6,300. You never know, again, what you're going to get with a kid. The nerves come into effect, and is he going to have some command out there? You don't know. But this is a kid that's worth rolling the dice on. Like we said, he's the Tigers' top prospect and one of the top prospects in baseball. The Twins are striking it a lot versus righties. So it's a decent matchup there. It's one of those things where you can probably play both sides. Hope he implodes and stack the Twins. Also use him in some GPPs in case he goes off. So I like both sides of it. And Phil Hughes, another guy, you never know what you're going to get this guy. Usually you know you're going to get strikes. He's not going to walk a whole lot of people, but is he going to have one of those games where he throws 7 innings, 7 Ks, gives up a couple runs, or is he going to go 4 and get killed? I don't know. I don't like to pick on Hughes just because more often than not he pitches good enough. But these Detroit bats are starting to wake up, and a guy like Miguel Cabrera, he's certainly probably the top option at first base if you're not trusting Pujols, say, because he has owned Hughes throughout his career.
Yeah, I love Cabrera. I think he's probably my top first baseman for cash games on this slate at 3,700. Like you said, he's matched Hughes. Hughes has had those reverse splits for a good portion of a year and a half now. 353 WOBA, 31% hard contact rate to righties, really high home run to fly ball ratio, giving up a lot of fly balls. Do not like Hughes in this game. And if we're targeting bats, we like righties at, Minnesota. So Miguel Cabrera, JD Martinez, I would even roll the dice at Justin Upton still. Like, he's going to have a breakout game eventually, and he's under 3K, and that's too cheap for a guy with Upton's upside. So I would even take Upton in the tournament. I might leave him off my Detroit stack and then run a Detroit stack with him if I'm running multiple entries. But Miguel Cabrera, the number one guy for me here at first base. And I think he makes some good points about Fulmer. I feel like he's one of those guys where we'll take some bats against him, and we might throw him in a tournament lineup as well. Is there any of the Minnesota or Detroit bats that you like here?
I mean, JD Martinez, you mentioned, obviously love his upside, especially he's going to be hitting that 2 spot in that matchup in front of Miggy. I mean, the guys that have hit there have always produced. You can ask Torrey Hunter, but the numbers he put up in Detroit, hitting in front of Miguel Cabrera. So JD Martinez will do very well if he's sitting there, certainly in play. He's only $32 on FanDuel. And like you say, Upton at that price, certainly worth the risk in a GPP. The Minnesota bats, I think guys like Dozier, who's got that, home run / stolen base upside, as well as Miguel Sano, who has disappointed a little bit, but has started to heat up. And this is a guy with immense power and has double down potentially too. So against the kid that we don't really know what we're going to expect, and again, Detroit, not a great bullpen either, I think if you're going to stack the Twins, you definitely want to have Dozier and Sano in there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll stack the Twins. I like Sano as a one-off play in a tournament lineup. The problem with Sano, like you said, he's so hot or cold, and right now he's starting to warm up, so this is a good time to jump on him. When we seen Sano last year, he would get into these streaks where we started to see him hit every day, and then he would the home runs would start coming. So I feel like Sano's in a really good spot here. He would probably be the one guy that I want. I'm not a big Dozier fan unless he's facing a lefty. 3,100 is a good price tag, so I can get behind that. I can get behind the stolen base upside. I understand why you're wanting him. So I can definitely get behind the Dozier. Not a guy that I'm going to play. Miami at Milwaukee, Adam Conley, Zach Davies. Man, 2 great pitchers facing off here at Milwaukee.
Yeah, you got Zach Davies, who's still not living up to his potential. He continues to get rocked despite having pretty good stuff and pretty good control. So I think until he rights the ship, we can keep picking on him with bats like D. Gordon and Christian Yelich and Giancarlo Stanton. On the flip side, I really like Adam Conley. He's got big strikeout potential. He's a lefty. So generally, the righties give him trouble, but not the case here. He's actually striking out righties at a better percentage than lefties. And as we know, that Brewer lineup is weak and predominantly right-handed with lots of K upside. So I think Adam Conley is very sneaky in GPPs. There's a lot of guys in that mid to lower range here we can use in tournaments, and it's almost frustrating because there's so many of them. I can't use them all, obviously. I really like Adam Conley. I think he's sneaky here.
That's interesting. Conley's a guy that I like, and I'll probably use throughout the season. Don't think this is the spot. I just like so many of these other guys a lot more than I like Conley, and I think that plays into what you're saying. He's a low-owned option here, and like you said, we're going to see a lot of right-handed bats here for the Brewers, especially with Scooter going to the DL. That takes away probably, and I hate to say it, probably the best left-handed bat they have in this Brewers lineup. So I feel like this is a spot where if you want a guy that's probably less than 5% owned, Conley will be that guy. I agree with you on Davies. I'm going to target a lot of bats. The first guy that I'm going to start off with here, cash game, just go ahead and click the button next to his name. He's too cheap, and that's D. Gordon, 3,300 for Gordon's upside and, his floor. I feel like he's definitely the play at second base here for optimal lineups.
Yeah, I mean, basically the guy gets on base once, he can steal second, third, and score, and he's paid his salary off. So I don't mind that at all. Love D. Gordon and cash. Christian Yelich is a guy that doesn't get enough credit for how good he is too. He's a great cash game option. He's constantly on base, scoring runs. He can steal a bag. He's got a little bit of pop as well. So I like Yelich. And on the flip side of Conley, I mentioned I like Conley, and you're right, it might be tough to get him in with so many good arms in that same price range. Ryan Braun's a guy that's always hit lefties well. He's doing it again this season. Small sample size versus Conley, but he's hit him pretty good. So him and LaCroix, of course, would be under-owned. The upside's there in that ballpark, and they are lefties, and they both hit lefties well. So, I don't mind playing Conley at GPP. I also don't mind having Braun or LaCroix as a one-off as well.
Yeah, I feel like you pretty much nailed it there. Braun, a one-off play. What's your thoughts on the type of upside that Santana has at 2,600 if he bats in the leadoff spot? I feel like he's another guy that we could look at as another one-off play.
Yeah, I agree. And because the Brewers are full of right-handed batters, there's a few of them. Domingo Santana leading off is a great option. Chris Davis, obviously, Chris Carter, at first base there is a decent option too because he has double arm potential, massive power. A guy that I really have a tough time putting in my roster because the strikeouts are there. But, because of the right-handed potency here, you could do the same idea again. If you're using Conley, you could stack some Brewers against them and play both sides of it. So there's a lot of situations like that tonight.
Last bat I want to talk about with Martin Prado coming back, it feels like the Marlins are trying to get Derek Dietrich into the lineup. And if he's in the lineup at 2,200, I'm not saying that he's a guy that I'm going to play everywhere, but I am saying he's a guy that I'm going to play everywhere at 2,200.
Yeah, you have to love the upside. He's got the power, good matchup there, good ballpark. I love it. Probably your best bang for the buck at third base tonight. Another guy that I forgot to mention earlier, Wandy Uribe has been starting to heat up a little bit. Same price at third base against a lefty and a hitter's park as well. So if you're looking to save some money, those two guys will certainly help you get the studs in your tournament lineups.
Yeah, it's so frustrating that Dietrich is not getting everyday playing time. But if he does continue to get this playing time, he's definitely a guy that I like here. Washington at the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals, the best team in the league right now against right-handed pitching. They have the highest ISO. They have the most home runs. They have the highest WOBA. They have the highest WRC+. They have been absolutely stellar against right-handed pitching. And for that reason, I feel like Steven Strasburg is a lot riskier than what we're going to hear today. What's your thoughts on Strasburg here?
Well, I looked that up too and was amazed. It's like you said, the best team, and it's not even close. The Cardinals are by far the best team in most of those categories versus righties. So paying the price you have to pay for Strasburg, unless you're on a two-pitcher site where if he crashes a little bit or isn't great, the other guy can kind of make up for it. I don't know that I want to pay the price on FanDuel on a one-pitcher site and trust Strasburg. He's certainly been very good, more trustworthy, but that price against this matchup, I don't love it. I'm kind of with you there. The St. Louis Cardinals team is so good. They don't strike out either. So not only are they number one in all these offensive categories, they're not striking out. This is a tough matchup for Strasburg. I think even if he pitches great, it could be 7 innings, a couple of runs, and 5 Ks. It might not be great anyway. So I don't see me getting on him anywhere at that price. I just don't trust it. And when you're paying 11K on FanDuel or more, you want a guy that you feel is going to be a lock. It's going to throw a gem. I don't necessarily see that tonight. Contrarian GPP play, I like it. If you can pay up and you can do that with a couple of maybe stack a cheap team, for example. On the flip side, Mike Leake's been a guy that's been hit pretty hard here, but Washington's offense is really quiet right now. They're not hitting righties at all. There's no real left-handed threat there aside from Harper. So I don't think that I'm playing either pitcher, nor do I think I'm rolling out any offense versus either pitcher.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting game. I feel like it's a great spot to fade Strasburg. He's been pitching excellent. We can say excellent. He's looked really good this season, and he looks like he was 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm happy for him overall. It's just not the matchup for me. I feel like he is a guy that I don't mind fading. I feel like on SP2 sites like DraftKings, Fantasy Draft, Fantasy Aces, I feel like he's going to be really popular getting paired with Kluber, and I'm not there. So, man, the price tag. And then Leak, like you said, who do we target against him? Outside of Harper, who do we target against him? Like maybe Daniel Murphy, but, Washington has been cold, and it's an interesting game here.
Yeah, I don't mind Daniel Murphy, another great cash game option. And Leak has been susceptible to lefties throughout his career, so I don't mind that. Michael Taylor's a punt, pretty cheap, got the homer upside, the stolen base upside, sure, but yeah, there's really not a whole lot to love here. I think this is one of those games where you kind of fade it and hope it doesn't burn you.
Yep, and if we had to pick on Strasburg with anybody, is there anybody that you would want here, even in a tournament?
Not really. I mean, I think Carpenter's going to be a tough out for him against any righty. He's a stud. I could see a multi-hit game from him, but I don't really see him hitting a couple of home runs. This Cotty's been unbelievable. This is a kid that I've been rostering a lot of recently, and he's been great. And he actually won me a tournament the other night with his 3-run shot in Arizona there late. But again, Strasburg's so tough, and he's pitching so well, and I feel like he's taken the next step forward. I really do believe in Strasburg being this good throughout the season. But again, the matchup's not there. It's a righty on righty. I just don't see any upside to taking the Cardinals here. Now, normally, last couple of years, you could stack against Strasburg because he had those games where he'd get beat up pretty bad, and they're going to be low owned. But that, to me, is the Strasburg of old. I really believe in the step he's taken forward here. I just don't love the price tag. I don't see him dominating this, and I can't pay that price for a good performance.
Yeah, and all right, so if I had to take 2 guys here in a tournament, if I don't believe in Strasburg, I want a little bit of exposure to the Cardinals' bats where I feel like he's going to get hit. I feel like it's Holiday and Grichuk. Strasburg's really good against lefties. So, yeah, Harper, it goes without saying, if you want to take a shot on Harper, he has the most upside of any hitter, maybe outside of Trout. So, yes, Harper, go for it if you want to play him in a tournament at 5,700. Neither one of us are going to talk you off of it. His price is ridiculous. We'll tell you that. That's about it for Harper, but I feel like Holiday and Grichuk, 3,100 and 3K, the 2 guys that I would want here for pretty much in this game outside of maybe Carpenter. We're at a Coors Field, but we got the Rockies and we got the Arizona Diamondbacks and we got the highest total and we got a lot of runs being scored in this game. Robbie Ray, Tyler Chatwood. What's your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, we're at a Coors Field, but we're in Coors Field Light there, Chase Field, which is almost just as bad. You know what? As of now, and it may change as I dig more into things again, like Stevie said, it's 9:47 Eastern time on Thursday night. We're breaking the slate down for you. I think Vegas has it wrong, and I get why. Colorado and Arizona in this ballpark. I don't have to pick on either Robert Ray or Tyler Chatwood. I think they're both much better than people realize. I think they can limit the damage tonight. I'm not really in love with anything here, and I plan on probably fading this everywhere, which I know people think I'm crazy, but Chatwood is a good control pitcher. He doesn't get hit hard. A lot of ground balls there. The only guy I really would like is Peralta, who's been a monster versus lefties at home. But Chatwood's not the type of pitcher he hits well. On the flip side, Robbie Ray being a lefty, Colorado's not hitting lefties at all. Maybe a Reynolds, I guess, but not a guy that I like. And, of course, Arenado's been unbelievable, but he's really struggled against changeups, and Robbie Ray's got a good one. He has not hit Ray well, and I don't want to pay that kind of price for Arenado outside of Coors. So call me crazy, Stevie, but this is a game that I'm not really as interested in as Vegas believes we should be.
I'm not going to call you crazy. I feel like you made valid points. So how can I call you crazy when you make valid points? And I feel like I'm a little different on this game. I want Goldschmidt. I feel like Goldschmidt's in a great spot against Chatwood. It's small sample sizes, but what we've seen with Chatwood, he's struggled against righties. And Goldschmidt, probably one of the best righties in baseball, top 3 definitely. And 4,700, I feel like people are going to pay up for pitching, and Goldschmidt might go a little under-owned. And I say a little under-owned. I'm hoping that he's under like 18%. I feel like that's a good nut line for him. If you can get Goldschmidt against Chatwood at 18%, I feel like you're doing good. So it's tough because I do want a couple of these bats. It's like you said, who do we target? Peralta, Goldschmidt on that side, Arenado. Story has been really good against the fastball, and I feel like people are figuring that out, and they're throwing some off-speed stuff to him. And he not only is tied for the league lead in home runs, but he's also leading the league in strikeouts. So there's some strikeout upside here for Robbie Ray. I won't be taking either one of these pitchers. I'll be sprinkling in some bats, but I don't feel like this is a full game stack, so I kind of agree with you here.
Yeah, and mentioning Goldschmidt, again, small sample size. If you're a BVP guy, which I am, versus Chatwood, Goldschmidt is 1 for 9 with a couple of strikeouts. So, as a matter of fact, the entire Arizona Diamondbacks lineup is hitting 208 off of Chatwood. He's done very well against them. So, yeah, I just feel like this game is going to disappoint people. They're going to jump on it because of the high over-under. We're going to see 2 pitchers that they don't really recognize, and they're going to load up in this game. And I think they're disappointed. I can see this being a 4-3 game, not an 8-7 game.
Will be interesting to see for sure here, especially with Vegas thinking it's going to be such a high-owned game. Houston at Oakland. Talk to me about, I guess his name is Sean Manaea.
Yeah, Sean Manaea. He is, Houston's top prospect here. Again, one of the top prospects in baseball. He's
Oakland.
A lefty.
Oakland's top prospect.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Houston. I got you, buddy.
Oh, sorry. Houston, my apologies. Yeah, he came over from Kansas City in the Ben Zobrist deal. Again, a top prospect in all of baseball. And another guy that's a flamethrower, throws mid-90s, nasty slider, great changeup as well. And the thing about him is, I forget exactly how tall he is. I want to say 6'5", but they talked about him, the way he lands and stretches his delivery out, it feels like he's on top of you and lets go of the ball. So his 94, 95 feels like it's coming at you about 100 mile an hour. So another interesting one, just like Fulmer we talked about earlier, and a Houston team that strikes out a ton, it'd be really interesting. Of course, Houston also hits home runs a bunches, and they hit lefties well. So, again, maybe playing both sides of it. Again, a rookie coming up, you never know exactly where his pedigree is. Is he calm? Is he collective? Is he going to have any nerves? Is he just going to come up to be confident? So I'm playing both sides. I might stack some Houston here, even though the ballpark is not great. And I'm going to have some Sean Manaea just because I think just because I think the upside is there. The price is great, and he has a ton of K potential, especially with Houston being the opponent there.
Yeah, you mentioned their strikeout rate is really high, 26.4% against lefties this season. Their hard contact rate only 25%, but 356 WOBA, which is 7th highest against lefties this season. So you're going to get one or two things here. You're going to get Houston runs, or you're going to get a really good pitching performance. So I feel like it's a good game. We continue to say this, but I feel like this is a good night to – instead of playing maybe like 4 teams in the $25, you play 6, 7, 8 teams in the $10 tournaments. I feel like this is the night to have multiple teams because you're going to want some exposure to the pitchers, but you're going to want some exposure to the bats against the pitcher as well. So I'm with you. What's your thoughts on Michael Fiers in this game against Oakland? O.co, one of the best ballparks for pitchers here.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Fiers in general. I'm not a guy that gets hit very hard. I know he has been hit hard this season, but I think he figures it out. Got that nasty curveball and pretty good control, and it's a good ballpark as you mentioned. But Oakland A's bats, some of them are so cheap. A guy like Chris Coghlan, if he gets to start, he's dirt cheap at third base. Jed Lowry's pretty cheap at second base there, and Reddick and Vogt smash righties, and they're always reasonably priced. So any of these 4 guys in your cash games, if you're looking for some salary relief, I don't mind it because it's not the best matchup, but it's not a total punt if you go to a Coghlan or a Lowry. And if you want to stack those 4 in a GPP, I'm okay with that too. They're so cheap that you could load up some bats, go with an ace, whatever you want to do there. So, I'm not dying to have them, but I think they're in an interesting spot here, and I think they're in play.
Yep, I definitely agree. You pretty much nailed it. Everything that I wanted to say, you said. So we'll move on to San Diego at Los Angeles, taking on the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. Alex Wood against Cesar Vargas. It's an interesting game. Alex Wood, he's a guy that we've targeted in the past because he gets a massive ground ball rate, and it's the Padres. And the Padres this season are just awful. There's no other words for them. They're bad this season. What's your thoughts on Wood and Vargas here?
Well, Woods really disappointed. I thought he'd be much better than this. He looks terrible. He's not striking anybody out. I know it's the Padres, but they do hit lefties much better than righties, and this is not Madison Bumgarner. I mean, so as much as I want to say, hey, in tournaments, go get Wood, the win's there, some strikeouts are there, the upside's there, I don't know that it is. I mean, this is the kind of guy that I want to right the ship first before I get on board. So I've not liked what I've seen from him. And with all these other great value arms that we talked about, I think I may be fading Wood here and not necessarily grabbing any of these Padre bats, perhaps Matt Kent or Derek Norris in a GPP. But aside from that, I'm not really in love with that matchup. Cesar Vargas, mostly pitched out of the bullpen most of his career. Been real good in the minors. The Padres are going to make him a starter, it looks like. Another guy, good control, not a big strikeout guy, got a decent fastball, low 90s, good curveball. Not a guy that we have to pick on, especially in that ballpark. Obviously, Adrian Gonzalez is always in play, great cash game option, moderately priced, smashes righty. So I think he's in play there. Corey Seager, not really going right now, but again, another guy like Yasmani Grandal. They both hit righties well here, so I think they're in play, but I don't have to have the Dodgers in any format tonight, even though I think some of them are fairly safe. I think Vargas pitches fairly well. He may only go 4, 5, 6 at the most, but I don't have to pick on him.
Yeah, I found this game interesting. When I was, breaking down the slate, I was trying to set you up there. I don't like Alex Wood as well. I was seeing if you bit. There's just so many options that I like below him or just a little bit above him. So I'm not on Wood in this game. I like some of these Padre bats against Wood. Like, if I had to target a couple guys, we know Matt Kemp throughout his career has been really good against lefties. He's only 3,400, and Derek Norris is always a guy that I like to play against lefties too, and he's only 2,100 in this game. So I feel like Derek Norris is a really interesting catcher option at 2,100. And you mentioned some of the bats here for the Dodgers. Yasiel Puig is only $3,100. I feel like he's a really sound play on FanDuel as well at this cheap price tag. And then my boy Jock Peterson, always a guy with some upside at 2,800, but assume the risk that that he might go over 4. He might go 1 for 5, and that one hit might be a home run. So he's definitely risky.
Yeah, Jock is always in play, like you said, because of the home run upside. He's so cheap, makes a great outfield punt. Puig, man, just looks awful. I mean, even when he's getting 2-0 pitches and 3-1 pitches that are grooved to him, he's popping them up and missing them. His plate discipline seems to get worse. I like him. He's so talented. But you want to wring his neck sometimes when you own him in any format. So Puig's not a guy that I'm really on in this matchup because I think Vargas is actually decent, and he's just been so bad lately. The price is right, like you say. And if you're going to stack the Dodgers, you got to have some Puig in there, I think. But I don't have to have Puig right now at all. And I don't necessarily think I'm going to go after the Dodgers, even if I do stack 5 or 6 teams. And like you said, it's certainly a night you want to have a lot of exposure to a lot of teams and pitchers. But I think the Dodgers are going to miss the cut for me.
Kansas City at Seattle to wrap us up here on this 14-game slate. Felix Hernandez against the team that doesn't strike out very often, and Chris Medlin, who has struggled this season to start the year, even with that good bullpen behind him, has not looked great. And what's your thoughts on these two guys here on this last game?
Yeah, Chris Medlin, a guy like Alex Wood, who I thought would be better. And both of them still may come around, but right now they're not anybody you can touch. I think some of these saddle bats are in play. Cano and Seager, who both hit right-handed pitching well. Even Cruz, who, of course, has that big home run upside. I think those 3 guys are certainly in play. I don't even mind them in cash, Cano and Seager, site-dependent. If they're priced right, I'm okay with it. On the flip side, Felix Hernandez, he doesn't look right to me. He's walking guys. The velocity's down. This is not a good matchup anyway. I don't take anybody ever against the Royals. I said this from day one last season. I never took a pitcher against them. I'm not doing it now, even though it's Felix Hernandez. It's funny, we got Hernandez and Strasburg on the mound tonight. You think that would be great. We're not really interested in either one of them.
I'm telling you, Nicasio. I keep landing on Nicasio. I like some bats in the slate. So I'm with you, man. Hernandez 10-6. It's tough to pay 10-6 for Hernandez when you have Kluber for $400 more. And that's kind of where I've, landed on it. It's like the number one rule in basketball. You don't play teams against the Spurs. I'm sure there's one for hockey as well. But in baseball, you don't take pitchers against Kansas City. It's just not profitable over the long term. It might pay off, from time to time. Like we've seen Thor dominate Kansas City. Thor is, Thor. He's ridiculous. It's going to happen from time to time. It's not going to happen in this game. I do like some of the bats here. What's your thoughts on some of the Seattle bats and the Kansas City bats?
Yeah, aside from the bats I mentioned, Seattle, like Cano, Seager, and Cruz, the obvious ones. Adam Lynn could find himself in the lineup there. He's got home run power. He's going to be dirt cheap. Again, though, not a cash game option because you might only see a couple of the bats. And same for Seth Smith, who's also probably going to hit maybe in that 2 spot and be cheap. So some upside there, I think. But again, if you don't get to Kansas City early, like Stevie P mentioned, that bullpen is insanely good. You're probably not going to get to them late. So not in love with it. And on the flip side, with Kansas City, you don't necessarily have a guy that can go off. They can all have the multi-hit games. They single and double and walk you to death. You never know where it's coming from. They're 7 batters deep, and they're facing the king. So I have no interest in these Kansas City bats.
Yeah, the only one that I would take a shot in a tournament is Moustakas. He's the one guy that has the upside. That's about it for Kansas City, to be honest with you. That's about it for Seattle. I just don't think on a 14-game slate I need to go to Safeco against Felix Hernandez or Medlin. Like we said, if Medlin goes 5 or 6 innings, he gets to the bullpen, and then you're like, well, crap. My night's pretty much over with my bats because the Kansas City bullpen is really that good. Pepsi, it's been fun, man. Let's talk some home runs. Let's talk some home run derby. Got to help out the co-host here. I'm starting to get a little bit of a lead on these guys, so you got to help them out. And for that reason, I'm going to let you go first here on the slate. Home run derby would go you, me, you, me. 3 picks each, and I'll let you lead off here.
Mike Trout, to me, is the top option tonight versus Kobe Lewis in that ballpark.
Trout was definitely a guy that I liked here. It's hard to argue Mike Trout. I can't even make an argument like anything. So you go Trout. I'll go Harper just because I feel like I can't give you too much here. So I'm going to go Harper. And I like going a little crazy. I don't think this is too crazy, though. I'm going Lucas Duda here in this matchup against Peavy. I like Duda to go yard in this game. And give me your last 2 guys here as we wrap up the home run derby.
All right, I'll go with Jose Abreu. I think that he's got some upside there. And Yan Gomes versus the lefty in Philly.
All right, I like that. See, I like when people come on and they go a little crazy with their picks. Right? Yeah, you can't go too chalky. So, let's see. My last one. I don't want to go too chalky. I'll go Justin Upton. J Up, really cheap on FanDuel. I'm going against Phil Hughes here. I'm taking my shot, and I feel like I'm going to take a shot on a guy under 3K. I feel like Hughes is the way to take the shot. All right, last segment before we get out of here, Pepsi. One pitcher at the end of the night that you feel like is going to have a win. He doesn't have the most fantasy, or it doesn't have to have the most fantasy points, but at the end of the night on FanDuel, he's going to have a win in his column. Who's that guy for you?
I think that's Juan Nicasio, actually. I know we talked about him, and it might have been your guy, but that's why I keep coming back and going, man, can I really do him in cash over Kluber? Because he's a big favorite, and I really think that Nicasio and Pittsburgh get the job done.
You got to steal my thunder, man.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. He said one guy is going to do that, so I'll let you take the next option. I know where you're probably going because we talked about this guy, and you liked him a little more than I did, and I think you're right that the win was going to be there, so I'll leave the mid-tier guy for you.
All right, Nicasio, definitely the guy that I feel like is going to pick up the win. Hector Santiago is my middle range guy that I feel like is going to pick up the win. We don't have to tell you that we think Kluber is going to pick up a win at the end of the night. Santiago, 8,600. He's the guy that I feel like is going to pick up the win. I feel like the Angels are definitely going to get to Lewis in this game. Pepsi, it's been fun, man. I really appreciate you jumping on last minute here with me, filling in for Hoop. I appreciate it, my friend.
My pleasure.
They can find you on the Bump. What is it, 4 days or 5 days a week?
4 days a week on the Bump video, yes, sir.
All right, and that's always on the main page here at RotoGrinders. Pepsi gives you a few pitchers that he likes and one pitcher that is his gas can of the night. And if we had to give a gas can of the night without stealing your thunder for your video, Kobe Lewis, did I guess?
Kobe Lewis is the guy. About to record the video shortly. It should be up tomorrow morning. But yes, Kobe Lewis is my gas can of the night for Friday.
Nice. I figured I was going to try to guess it. I hate to steal your thunder. And, if people are listening to the podcast, they get 2 gas cans. So, all right, my friend, I appreciate you jumping on. We will be back on Monday with Hoop will actually hopefully be back and everything's good with his daughter. So he'll be back joining me on Monday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Remember that we have awesome coverage coming here to Roto Grinders this weekend, live from Talladega. If you like NASCAR, we'll have a lot of stuff going on at Talladega. I'm Stevie TPFL, and I will see you guys on Monday.